Sure. My name is Jasmine Taylor. I'm a candidate for mayor, and I have been a state of Montana employee for about 14 years now, actually. I've run for office before, so I primarily consider myself an activist rather than a politician. But I've run for the House before in 2020, right before COVID, and several years ago, the first political thing I did was run for commission. Well, I am from Great Falls, and so I went to the public school system here, which set me up for getting some scholarships, actually. Then I went to the University of Providence. I got my bachelor's degrees in English and psychology. And then when I was about 30, I decided to go back for my master's degree. So I got that through Missoula. I have a master's in public administration, which is how to run government organizations. It's actually the same degree that our city manager has. So that's kind of a two-part question. I'm running for mayor because I think the moment in time makes it incredibly necessary to be active in local government. And there are kind of two reasons for that. On the local level, we've seen decisions the past couple of years that I think were not good for the city. That includes ignoring the will of the voters and taking money away from the library, but overall just issues with our budget that I think both my experience as an activist, but also my educational and professional experience makes me really qualified to go in and look at systemic problems and basically address the root issues and come up with solutions. The other part of this is national. On the national level, the things that are happening are creeping into Great Falls. It's maybe not in the public eye as much right now, but ICE is here. Our neighbors are being taken away. Our county is using its resources to detain individuals with DHS stuff. And our city is going to have to make choices when it comes to that. I don't think that the current mayor is going to stand up for neighbors that are at risk. And I have spent my career standing up for the vulnerable. So with what's happening nationally, I think we need a strong voice that's going to stand up for all members of our community. We have to fix the budget. 100% on the local level, we have to fix the budget. Right now, there's just very uneven distribution of where our funds are. And we're not necessarily getting the return on investment we're told. So in looking at the budget, we have to be forward thinking about things like what public safety means. I don't think simply responding to crime when it's already occurred is public safety. That doesn't create public safety. I think crime prevention is public safety. And that's including mental health resources, substance use resources. Anything that's going to ameliorate poverty will likely have a direct positive impact on the safety of our citizens. So I think it's time to be more critical of our budget, and it's time to examine if we are getting out of it what we're expecting to. My thought is that when there is a direct issues put to the citizens to say yes or no, we respect what they say. So my personal thoughts about it don't matter. What matters is what the voters decide, and that is what we'll have to respect. My personal feelings about fireworks, I have no major commitment to them because I don't think I attach the symbolism that a lot of people do. I think that often we would like to look at a symbol and say respecting that symbol somehow makes us patriotic. I live in a community with a lot of veterans who may suffer from PTSD. And I think ignoring the hardship that creates for them is a little bit out of sync with the holiday they're intended to celebrate. So I think we also have to look at our symbols and see if what we're saying they symbolize is what's happening in practice. That will inform how I vote, but I'm going to respect whatever the voters say because we're literally asking them to say yes or no. So this is an interesting question because the city is not necessarily in the business of housing. I think the city's role in housing is to protect the folks that already live here rather than look out for the profits of corporations that may want to make housing here, but it's not affordable. So we can approve 200 developments, but if they cost $500,000, that doesn't serve Great Falls. Montana is the most unaffordable place in the country right now. That's not here, and it's not just local, but we have to respond to that. So I think the role of the city is more so protecting the people that live here now. And that can be through things like looking at tenants unions, looking at regulation for perhaps second home, Airbnb, or vacation rentals, and all the other things that may be creating false scarcity in our housing. So that, I think, is more so the role of the city than necessarily seeking out developers. We shouldn't be looking out for private profit. We should be looking out for the well-being of the citizens. Again, I think we have to talk about public safety. Does the fire department make us safe? Absolutely. You know, they're responding to a fire that has occurred or a medical emergency that has occurred. Emergency services, absolutely. Often we have a false dichotomy that the number of police that we have is somehow going to impact our safety, and that is response. If crime continues to outpace response, we could put our entire budget to hiring police. It would not prevent crime from occurring. We want to create public safety in which people are less likely to be a victim of a crime, not just how quick is someone to get there after the bad thing happened to you. And again, those are the same social safety net things that we just discussed. If you address food insecurity, housing insecurity, mental health resource scarcity, substance abuse resource scarcity, then you're going to prevent a huge amount of the crime that we have here. The vast majority of our crime is preventable through a strong community of social services and a real safety net. So I think the problem of folks being unhoused first needs to look at our attitude towards individuals that are unhoused, because owning property does not mean we're a better or worse person who has made better or worse decisions. In fact, we are all much closer to being unhoused than we are to being millionaires, by far. There are wonderful organizations that already are looking at this with innovative solutions like tiny homes. I think it's important to note, especially in Great Falls, we have way more veterans than most places. A lot of our homeless folks are veterans. We have something around 300 school children that have housing insecurity at any time. And so it's more than one population. It's more than just this idea that folks that made poor choices are now unhoused. That's not reality. The economy is bad. So Housed Great Falls is looking at what they can do to do tiny houses. We've seen in other places basically services for veterans based on tiny houses, which I think is a wonderful thing to explore. But also, we have to provide basic humanity, and there is one commissioner already doing that. And I think our attitude towards folks very much determines our motivation to help them. So Commissioner Wilson is already looking at basically downtown bathroom that could be used for the unhoused folks based off like the Portland Loo. And that's just a basic need. Folks need a place to use the restroom. And if you don't provide it to them, our downtown will become unclean and unsanitary. It benefits everyone to have those kind of facilities available. I think the role of the commission is being leaders in how we treat one another, how we look at innovative solutions, and then how we support nonprofit organizations or other organizations like NeighborWorks that are doing the work. I think setting the tone for how our community takes care of each other is a huge part of how you build momentum. There's this idea that growth is inherently positive and that fallowing or not growing is what kills a community. I think only smart growth is what we're after. We don't want growth that is going to be at the expense of the environment. We don't want growth that's a data center that brings in 2,000 to 3,000 temporary employees, likely not hired local, to overburden our systems and then they're gone. And then we're left with maybe 20 high-paying jobs, which themselves will be replaced by AI, right? So like we're looking at this data center and we know it's a boom and bust. We've watched it happen other places. That's not the growth I want. The city doesn't have total say in that, but we can look at what growth we want to bring in here. We can attract that kind of business. And that includes businesses that are, employee-owned organizations where every employee has stock in the company, or businesses that their employees are union. So when we're looking at what to attract here, we look at what our population needs and is it going to provide livable wages? Is it going to make someone that moves to our community or lives in this community afford to live here? If all it does is create profit for a business, we're not in the interest of the business. We're in the interest of the community and the people within it. So I think growth should be guided by how that employer will treat its employees. Is that going to create more poverty here, or is it going to create a sustainable middle-class economy? Infrastructure and a lot of things that are just public good may not always make a profit or break even. That's where the planning comes in. So infrastructure like water, or let's say the commission increased our utility rates 27%. Yeah, that infrastructure was needed. It had been put off. But you have to be cognizant of the moment in time. And they did not have to do the total increase all at once. folks just can't afford it right now. And so again, if people can't afford to live here, that infrastructure actually becomes unnecessary. What we do as a forward-thinking community is look at what increase can be afforded based on the economy year by year, but also where else that money can come from. The taxpayers alone, we can't continue to have levies and increase property taxes and X, Y, and Z, state, local, and beyond. The money's not there. Infrastructure means a couple of things. When we're approving subdivisions, if we're not getting a fire department with that, we'll see what's already happened. We've had sprawl, but we have not had concurrent upkeep with our fire departments. The response time went down. All of our homeowners insurance went up because we don't have enough fire departments. Some of that is on the city, but some of that can be thinking outside the box and asking for community reinvestment from places like Calumet, who take a lot from our city's resources but continually protest their property taxes. So we cannot put all of the burden on the citizens constantly. There are other options, there are other things that haven't been explored, and there are millions/billions out there that could be used for community reinvestment if businesses were committed to investing in our community. So one thing I do want to address is an AI video that was created of the current mayor. And unfortunately, folks have been led to believe that I created that. I most definitely did not. I've even had folks say that Sora must be my alter ego. It's an AI technology, and I don't use AI. I don't use it in my posts. I just don't use AI. But more importantly, I believe the mayor is aware that I didn't create that video. I would love if he would clarify this himself, because I believe he knows who did, but it wasn't me. I also don't run the Montana Resistance page that shared the video, and I've made that clear to everyone. That was not me. So fully happy to stand on my own words. I tend to say exactly what I think, no matter what the response might be. If I said it, I'll stand 10 toes down on it. I didn't create that.